Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder All Weather here. We have a very active setup over the next 3 days with multiple rounds of severe storms. Plus, we're going to walk you through the rest of the month into the first part of May. So let's take a look at the satellite picture this morning. We've got the southwest winds with their first disturbance moving in. We had an area convection that blew up across West Texas in the overnight hours that traversed up to the Wichita Falls region, and that left some intense winds into those areas, into Oklahoma, into the Oklahoma City region. Those areas picked up some 70 to 80 mile per hour winds with the nasty squall line. Now we have new convection that is blowing up this morning. In fact, we have a tornado watch in place through about 11 o'clock in the morning. And we've actually had several tornado warnings already with this convective complex. We have yet another convective complex further north, more of a heavier rain, some stronger storms producers into Minnesota, as well as into Iowa, back into portions of Missouri, as well as into Illinois. So if we take a look at the dew points, this kind of gives you the depiction of what we're talking about here. This is the area of low pressure that will set up shop across areas of Nebraska. We've got a warm front draped across this region, and this is all lifting up to the northeast. And there is your dry line back. So the separation of drier and more moist air mass out ahead of it. That's where we got to be concerned about severe storms, and closer to the area of low pressure, we've got to be concerned about tornadoes into later on this afternoon into the evening time frame. If we take a look at the overall water vapor index, we've got a lot of intense water vapor coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. You can actually see the flow here. I mean, the Gulf of Mexico is open for business, and the deeper the colors here, that is the more intense the heavier rainfall could be, with those deeper purples pulling all the way into Texas, through Arkansas, back into Missouri, back into Iowa. There's your low pressure center right here, really starting to deepen, and that will continue to move up to the northeast. And then we have yet another system that will be trailing behind that one. So here's the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center. And in fact, they did include that hatched risk for strong tornadoes right around where that low pressure is into Iowa, areas of eastern Nebraska, back into eastern Kansas, as well as northwestern portions of Missouri. You have the greater probability of seeing a strong tornado later on this afternoon into the evening time frame. And then further south, you still have that probability along that boundary into eastern Oklahoma. That's where they have the tornado watch in place right now, and far northeastern portions of Texas. And that will swing into Arkansas as well as into Missouri, but also some big time hail producers. That hatched risk, that implies anywhere along this boundary here, you could likely see a larger hailstone, anywhere from quarter size. And this hatched risk here, you could pick up a 2-inch hailstone. They've seen a lot of that last night into the Kansas region. We're going to be seeing a lot more today right along that boundary, and where that red shaded area is, that is the most numerous. You're going to have a little bit more scattered activity and more probabilities of seeing those larger hailstones of possibly ping pong to tennis ball size hail within that region. But yeah, it's pretty active, folks. Very active later on this afternoon. We've got a 991 millibar low pressure setting up across Nebraska. That will be lifting north into the Dakotas, back through Minnesota. That's going to be picking up some heavier rains, but it's right along that boundary. We've got to be concerned about tornadic activity, and elongated further south. You can have a tornado or two along that squall line, but it's going to be more of a broken squall line, if you will, further south back into Texas, and that will move into Arkansas as well as into Missouri and western portions of Illinois. And it has some heavier rain, folks. So even for today, we do have a marginal to slight risk. So for these areas that are highlighted in that green and yellow shaded area, that's where the most heavier rain is going to fall today. So back into the yellow shaded area, that you could easily include 1 to possibly 2 inches of heavier rain in northeastern Texas, Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, back into Missouri. That is the most favored area, have the greatest lift to produce some possible flash flooding. But it all gets going again tomorrow because this same area doesn't really get, you're still in the warm sector. We have a more intense low level jet will really coming in. It really starts to dig there, and you can see the low pressure center actually dropping further south. Now that will set up shop across northwestern portions of the Texas Panhandle. That puts this whole area into play with all three modes of severe storms. And I do feel Saturday will be the most active day. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted that expanded view of that hatched risk for possible significant tornadoes within this region. So if you live within the yellow shaded region back into Kansas, as well as into central Oklahoma, far northwest portions of Texas there around the Red River area, that's the greatest probability of seeing a strong tornado. And some of these areas, including Oklahoma and back into Kansas, I can't rule out some of these actually be turning a violent tornado and some intense, maybe even a long track tornado, because a lot of dynamics are starting to come together. A lot of that Cape Valley, a lot of the energy in the atmosphere starts to come together during like peak heating tomorrow afternoon, right around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, going into the evening time frame. So that is going to be a main concern, and I will be live covering that event on here. So make sure you are liking the channel and subscribing. So here's the setup for hail, folks. I mean, yeah, we got a lot of hail continuing with this big time hail producer storms anywhere in that hatched dotted risk. That could include some of that 2-inch hail variety. So that does damage, folks, all into your car, into your home. That would put a dent in your car. So make sure you are prepared for these storms that come, because these look to be pretty intense as we head into Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. And that only extends further north this time, all the way back into northern Illinois, as well as into Wisconsin. Even portions of Michigan could likely see severe storms and heavier rainfall, folks. We've got, again, another intense storm system coming in, that deepening area of a low pressure. This will be highlighted a little bit further south, so it puts a little bit further south areas into play. And as this continues to move up with yet another warm front lifting back to the northeast again, that will put this whole area inundated with very heavy rain and tornadic spin-ups and big time hail producers is definitely not out of the question. So here's the setup on the surface map. You can kind of see what we're looking at with that low pressure center setting up on that secondary system, elongated into northwestern portions of Kansas here. And that will continue to lift northeast, and those darker shaded greens here, that is an indication of very heavy rainfall. In fact, there's a lot of lift too. So here's the overall, where you can see this is the Elicity tracks. It just kind of gives you a guidance on the greatest probability of where you could see a tornadic spin up or a big time hail producer. And this is a large area, folks. This is definitely concerning down here into northwest portions of Texas, West Texas, far northern Texas, but especially there in Oklahoma, back into Kansas, areas of central and northwestern portions of Nebraska here, and back into Iowa, and even areas into southern portions of Wisconsin. Can't be ruled out of seeing a tornadic spin up or some of that larger hail within that area, and very heavy rain. So this is your setup for Saturday, a moderate risk for excessive rainfall. So for those areas along the Red River, back into the Tulsa region, eastern portions of Oklahoma, definitely concerned about flash flooding. And those areas could easily pick up, say, 4 to 6 inches of rainfall with this system just on Saturday alone, as that storm system will be continue to pump in an extreme amount of water vapor within this region and increasing the flash flooding threat. And it keeps continuing over that same boundary. This is even into Sunday, folks. Yet another renewed threat is going to be more of a slower mover, kind of an overnight threat, and then pushing into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, into northeast Texas, back into eastern Oklahoma again, into Arkansas, back into Missouri, back into western Illinois. So you can see these same areas continue to be inundated for the next 3 days. And even on Sunday, folks, those could actually even be intense as well, as with a little bit slower system coming in out west, that delays the timing a little bit further now. And that puts even Sunday in even a higher threat for severe storms as we head into the overnight on Saturday night, into the morning, through the afternoon, across that region, across the south. So there's the low pressure as we head into Sunday afternoon, setting up shop again across areas of Nebraska. That will continue to lift northeast into Iowa, and then that tail end of it through Missouri, back into eastern Oklahoma and far northern portions of Texas there. That will include Arkansas as well as into Missouri. Notice it's really confined to like western Illinois, but it really doesn't get to Indiana or Ohio. You're going to be taking a break from that severe activity, and actually much of the rainfall really, because more or less the rainfall is confined to the center part of the country. At least the heaviest rainfall will be. And there's the setup on Sunday as that storm complex will be trying to move out, really be inundated over eastern portions of Texas by then, back into Arkansas as well as into Missouri, and then lifting further north as that low pressure lifts out. Would include more heavy rain for those areas into Minnesota as well as into Wisconsin. And even going into Monday, it's still the heavier rain will be shifting into Louisiana, back into Arkansas, as well as into southern Illinois. But notice as you push further east, you got the dry slide. So these areas have been inundated with a lot of heavier rain, storm complexes. Much of the southeast, much of the east continues to remain on the drier side, I think, really for the rest of the month. Because if you look at the overall setup, and what we're looking at here is this is your kind of a, here's your drier line, right? So you got all those areas of just missing out on everything. All the rain is really highlighted across the middle part of the country, and that's where we have those flooding concerns down in Texas and in Oklahoma, into Arkansas, back into eastern Kansas, as well as in Missouri. They could pick up easily 4 to 6 inches of rain, if not isolated areas even more than that. And I don't really think it ends there, because you continue to remain in the warm sector as we go through the first part of May. So this whole area across the orange shaded area continues to remain on the warmer side, keeping those dew points higher with that southwest flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, we would likely have more convective complexes, even yet another one as we head through Wednesday into Thursday of next week. And a lot of the same areas blowing up again across Texas, into Louisiana, into Oklahoma, back into Arkansas, as well as into Missouri and western Illinois. As these same areas continue to be in the favored area. And if you look at the overall ensemble guidance for, literally for the next 10 days, those areas across the brown shaded area back into the southeast, and much of the east continues to remain almost on the drier side, and everything is really elongated where that green and all the blue shaded colors are. And the darker the colors, the more intense and the likelihood of more above average you're talking about. So you're going into the wettest time of the year, and you're starting to see areas that are 3, 4, 5 inches above average, which you would typically see this time of year in your wettest time of year. So that's a lot of rainfall, folks, and a lot of stormy setup across the middle of the country, really for the next kind of 10 days. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.